Hello there everybody, my name is Bloomer Brown and welcome back to Ravenport for Farming Simulator 19, where this morning I've been up bright and early expanding the shed space on the main yard. Basically last night I was struggling to find a place to put everything, and I do admittedly still have a little bit of tidy up to do, but I think that is something I'm going to have to put on the long finger for today, because overnight there has been a development on the potato field and it would appear that they are ready to harvest in record time. We should actually end up getting a pretty decent yield out of this field because it is 100% fertilized and there aren't any weeds on the field just yet. Now from experience I do know that in Farming Simulator potato harvesting it can be a little bit tedious, so I think any of the other work that I'm going to do today is going to have to be fit in around the actual potato harvest itself. So with that in mind, let's jump in and have a look at potential machinery that we're going to be using today. And the thought did cross my mind to go for a self-propelled harvester that has a pretty wide working width and would knock that field out pretty quickly. But I think that this is probably overkill for that tiny little field, so what I've decided to do instead is to lease one of the trailed harvesters and basically slap it onto the John Deere. So let's get into potato technology and have a look at what we're going to be picking up. So obviously we are going to need a topper to remove those halums, and I think the Grimmy is the only one that is available to us in the game at the moment, so we are going to lease that. And we're also going to need a harvester. I think I'm going to go for the Grimmy as opposed to the Ropa. It is slightly cheaper and I don't really see the benefit of going for the slightly more expensive model. Both of these are only capable of lifting 2 rows at a time, so it's probably a case that this is going to be something I am going to have a worker do, and I'll basically run a grain cart unloading the machine when it is needed. So let's jump into the John Deere and get that picked up. Just looking at the sprayer there, I do also need to get a little bit of fertilizing done today and also possibly some weed spraying. We'll probably get to that at some stage. For now I'm going to jump in and head down to the shop and get that equipment picked up, and I'll check back in with you once I start harvesting. And already it's not going well. One of the concerns I had before the game released was whether or not mature crops would be able to crowd out weeds, and it seems that this potato field has not been successful in that. In the time it has taken me to run to the shop and pick up the equipment that I was going to be needing, the field has become fully infested with weeds, which is a little bit disappointing. We are going to end up losing about 15% of our yield from this field as far as I know, and yeah, technically I could spray out some weed killer and remove the problem, but I really don't think that is a good idea to be spraying weed killer onto a crop that is about to be harvested. So it's something that we are just going to have to grin and bear, I think. So let's get on with this harvest. And with the tops removed, it is time to get the harvester into position and start lifting up these potatoes. The John Deere should actually have no problem running this machine because we have plenty of horsepower under the bonnet. So let's see if we can get this thing unfolded. It does have a really nice animation on it, it has to be said. We're going to start it up and lower the pickup. There we go. Now, potato harvesting in Farming Simulator is a pretty long-winded and tedious affair, and I have it on good authority that the same is true in real life. The only experience I have of that myself is, of course, sowing potatoes in my garden a few years back. And yeah, the harvest is really one of the hardest parts, so my hat is most definitely off to anyone who does this for a living. Luckily, I can just throw it onto a worker and let him do the hard slog while I unload him when he is ready to go. And yeah, he seems to be doing a decent job and also cleaning out the weeds. Speaking of weeds, this seems to be the episode where our farm becomes infested because while I have been working, the other 3 fields we have are also now covered in weeds. So I'm going to jump into the field and head over and try and take care of that. Now obviously we need to put on the row crop tires, and in order to do that I have decided to invest in the vehicle workshop. Now it is a pretty expensive build, but it is going to end up paying for itself in the long run. It's basically going to cut down the cost of servicing our equipment because we won't have to pay mechanics fees. And once we purchase the different types of wheels, there will be no cost associated with transferring them onto the tractors. So it's a case that the building will end up paying for itself in the long run. Now I did want to try and get this as close to the new shed as is possible, but there seems to be some kind of a conflict. I did try a little bit of terraforming, but it didn't seem to help all that much. So what I'm going to do is try and get it as close as I can. And with it down and our bank balance dropping, it's time to pull the tractor in and get the tires changed over. I will have to come in here again at some point with the texture painter and get those weeds removed from the yard and put down some sort of either gravel or maybe just go with the normal ground texture. So we are looking for the narrow tires so that we don't do any damage to our crops. And yeah, we are just going to take that. We do have to pay for the tires themselves, but we shouldn't have to pay any fee for changing them over. I always do think the row crop tires make tractors look ridiculous, but it isn't as bad on the Fiat as it is on something like the John Deere 6R. So let's get ourselves hooked onto the sprayer and fill up on some weed killer and get over and start cleaning out our fields. And it seems that our worker has stopped. So what I think I'm going to do is actually just drop the harvester and use the John Deere to unload the machine and jump back when I am ready to start spraying. And the harvester is at last back up and running, and I've managed to fill up and get myself down to the field. Now the eagle-eyed among you will probably notice that I have accidentally filled up on fertilizer. That is of course because the 2 tanks are stacked way too close to each other in that shed, and it makes it a little bit difficult for the sprayer to select what I want to put into it. Not to worry though, because these fields do need a little bit of fertilizing anyway. So what I'm going to do is basically spray this out and then empty out the sprayer and load up with a little bit of herbicide and go over them again. As I'm making my way along, it might actually be worth having a quick look at the map just to be sure that I am in fact fertilizing the fields and not just wasting it. So let's turn off the weeds. Yeah, that seems to be working as intended. So let's just reset the map, and I'm going to jump into a quick time lapse and get this done as quickly as possible. I say job done, but when I was looking back over the footage I realised that I actually skipped over the second oat field, and I'm not entirely sure why I did that, because as far as I know, since it was planted yesterday and it's hit a new growth stage, it should have been able to accept a coat of fertiliser. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm just going to add it to the list of jobs that I need to get done tomorrow. So let's just unload that here and make our way over and try to fill up with some fertilizer, or some herbicide rather, and I am of course going to have to sort out this stack at some point and move them into separate locations just to make it easier to fill up. And this time we do manage to pick up the herbicide, and I can actually notice that the sprayer is dropping down as it fills up, which is kind of interesting. There definitely seems to have been some physics tweaks in this game. So anyway, I think it is time for another time lapse while I spray these fields out. So another job down. It has been a hectic morning, but I am at last getting on top of things. A lot of what I have been doing this morning is not some things that I wanted to do at all, but well, I am still having fun working my way through it. So let's get the Fiat changed back onto the standard tyres, which is costing us nothing. The benefit, of course, of having the workshop on the farm. And what the plan is now is to basically head over and start unloading the harvester. The trailer is almost full, and so I'm going to take a look at the markets and see who's offering the best price for potatoes at the moment. So I have actually unloaded the harvester twice. There is still a little bit inside the harvester at the moment, but I did want to get the trailer as full as possible. Now, as it turns out, the best price is of course on the furthest side of the map, up at the central grain elevator. Now that is usually a good place for selling things, though the restaurant has often put up a good price for potatoes, though what they will be doing with a trailer load of them is beyond me. Anyway, I am going to chug my way up there, which could take quite a while. The Fiat does have plenty of power for the job, but it can only reach a maximum speed of 25 kilometers an hour. So I'm going to catch up with you when I am selling these and see how much we got for them. And that was a pretty long drive. Even in post-production, that was a long drive, but hopefully it is going to be worth it because the price seems to be pretty good for the potatoes up here at the moment. I haven't actually gotten any notification from our worker just yet, so I am assuming he is still going, but it is pretty doubtful that I'll make it back in time to unload him before he stops. So let's get a look at the grand total for this trailer, and we are up to 7,425, which is actually pretty decent price that I am happy with. It did make the whole process of driving all the way up here worth it in the end. And now, of course, we have to make our way back down. This is becoming something of an epic saga. There and back again, A Tractor's Tale by Bloomer Brown. And many hours later, the potato harvest is still in full swing, and I've decided to pull out the plough and hitch it up to the Fiat and begin sort of turning the soil over and getting ready for the next crop on this field, which I am thinking at the moment will more than likely be grass that we can either make silage with or convert it into hay bales for sale. Not planning on getting into any other livestock just yet. In fact, I haven't actually bought any chickens for the farm yet either. Now, speaking of the Fiat and the plough, I do kind of wish that I had put the wide tyres onto the tractor. While it does have enough horsepower to pull it, it seems that it is losing traction as we're making our way along the field. There has also been another very unusual development, or at least I think it's an unusual development. Mostly I play Farming Simulator using seasons, which kind of doesn't show in the Ballymoon episodes at the moment, since I have been struggling to get to grips with some of the mechanics. But I'm not really used to the base game's growth rate, and it is a case that since this morning, the cotton crop and the first wheat field that we were spraying are now both ready to harvest. What I've actually done is turned off plant withering, because realistically I don't think that I can get to taking care of them this evening, and I'm guessing that by tomorrow both fields would have withered. And this is all a little bit ironic because at the beginning of the last episode I was actually laughing at some of the AI farmers for allowing their fields to wither and not being able to keep up with production, and here I am in the same situation now. So the potato harvesting is coming close to an end, and in fact I think the John Deere has finished. And he has indeed, the helper is done. So let's get over here and have a look at what's going on. Yep, he has done a pretty decent job indeed. So I think what I'm going to do is swing this over to the trailer, get it unloaded and return the machine to the shop. And once that's done, I'll be able to get the plough off the Fiat and onto the John Deere, which is going to absolutely fly through this field and get it ploughed out, hopefully before we come to sunset. And we are at last finished with this field. The potatoes are out and it has been ploughed, and we are probably going to leave any planting on that until tomorrow. In hindsight, I probably should have leased the self-propelled harvester because it would have gotten that done a lot faster, but as it happened, I was able to get a lot of other work done today as well. Tomorrow is probably going to involve a cotton harvest and also a grain harvest up on the wheat fields. I'm guessing that both of them will be grown by tomorrow. Now, as I am just finishing up, I notice that things are looking a little bit dark and gloomy around the yard. So, since we have made a little bit of money out of selling off those potatoes, I think we can afford to place down a few lights on the yard just to illuminate our way as we're coming in late at night from contracting. And I think that is pretty much where I am going to leave today's episode. I hope that it was in some way entertaining, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to contracting in the next episode and building out our new contracting firm a little further. Anyway, with that all said and done, I'm going to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for tuning in. You have been watching Bloomer Brown on YouTube, and I will see you next time.